Good evening, everyone, and sorry we're running a little bit late today, but we're going to present to you the Daily Roundtable. As you can see, we are currently missing two guests. Hopefully, Dave will be along in a few minutes. Greg will be here in about 15 minutes. But in the meantime, I would like to welcome all our guests, starting with Mindy. Could you introduce yourself?
Wrong side. I'm over here. Hi. I'm Mindy. I'm the Sassy Heathen. I have a YouTube channel of the same name. I'm on Twitter, and I'm an atheist. Yeah, yeah. That's really about it. I make a lot of content here on YouTube, and I try and participate as much as I can.
Yeah. It looks like Dave just joined us.
There's Dave.
Hey, real quick, Dave, could you give yourself an introduction, sir?
Hi, I'm Dave. How's that?
Hi, Dave.
Good intro. All right.
Dave Warnock, Dying Out Loud.
That's easy enough to remember. DyingOutLoud.com. Catalina.
My name is Catalina, and I live here near Brandon, near Ethan. I live in Roselle, Illinois, and I am a Christian, and I am here to talk about why I don't agree with euthanasia.
Awesome. And moving on to which I just learned, the ExXtian stands for ExXtian Erin, which I thought was pretty cool. So, please.
My name is Erin. I'm 34. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I did identify as a Christian for 33 years, and then over the last year, I have deconverted, and I'm here to talk about my stance on death with dignity as somebody who has a chronic illness and has a little bit of insight into some of the ways that people suffer.
Awesome. Thank you.
Should I give a little more of a thorough intro, Ethan, since I was kind of just... So just to give some context, I'm Dave Warnock. I used to be a Christian and a pastor for 37 years, and I've been an atheist for about 10 years. And for about the last 2 years, I've been dealing with a terminal illness called ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And so since then, I've been doing a thing called Dying Out Loud.
Thank you, Dave. So, if we could, let's actually start with you. Where do you on death? I apologize.
There's a lot of feedback and stuff. I can hardly hear you, Ethan.
Yeah, let me.
I'm going to move to a different room.
Okay.
Is that Erin's fault?
Can you take it back or tell me?
I don't think so. Hang on.
That's better.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
It was probably my kids. So I'm just my husband's home now, so I'm just gonna switch to a different room.
Okay.
Let me know in the audience if the audio is any better or if we're still getting echo.
That sounds much better to me. I don't know about the rest of you.
Is that better? It was me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay, Erin.
Let's get a light going here.
What would Dave do? Death with dignity. Well, I guess for one, let's define it. Dave, how do you define it?
Say what now?
How would you define death with dignity?
I think in a broad term, as a broad phrase, death with dignity. If you think about the word dignity, it simply would imply to me that I as an individual want to be able to have some control over how and when I come to an end. Now, that's obviously got qualifiers, but it has to do, from my viewpoint, it has to do with people who have terminal illnesses or chronic diseases that are not going to get any better, and their only option other than taking matters into their own hands and having some control over that and having some dignity toward the end of their life is to suffer needlessly for years and years. And I just, that's the option. That's the opposite view of dying with dignity. So to me, death with dignity has to do with how and when and why we come to the end of our life.
Awesome, thank you. So I want to jump to Catalina. Kat, do you have headphones? Because I found the echo is.
Is it coming from me?
Yes, when I muted it, it went away.
Okay, let me figure out.
Maybe me still.
Oh shoot! Let me grab my 1 second. I'm gonna grab my headphone.
Okay, stop moving around for me.
So Mindy, Erin, would you accept Dave's definition for death with dignity? Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, it sounds pretty good to me. I mean, the reason why I wanted to start this whole conversation, why I brought the idea to you to do the show, was because in May, the beginning of May, I lost my grandfather. He had cancer. He'd been suffering for quite a while. And back in 2013, his wife, my Nana, had suffered through cancer, and she had a radiation treatment that it basically ended her life. It was a very painful way to go. We were all there with her when she passed, but it was very difficult to see her in that state. So after she passed, my grandfather had spoken to us and said that that's not the way he wanted to go. In 2016, when Canada legalized it, and we call it medical assistance in dying, so for short, we call it MAID. He had come to us and said that he was going to sit down with a doctor and make that decision beforehand. That way, if his cancer progressed to the point where he was as sick as Nana was, that he wanted to enact that because he didn't want to suffer the way that she did. So at the end of April, we got a phone call saying that he had a suspected stroke. And they sent him to the hospital, and he was talking to his lawyers about going through and talking to that doctor that he had about actually going through with MAID. When they did a couple of MRIs, they ruled out a stroke, and he actually had two large brain tumors. And he was no longer able to walk. He couldn't get out of bed. He basically couldn't do anything else for himself anymore. And he decided to go through with it. And they gave him a medication. He fell asleep and he went peacefully, and that's how he wanted it to go. The reason why I wanted to talk about it was because I support the idea of someone being able to make that decision for themselves and end their life so that they don't have to suffer. But at the same time, it was difficult being the family member of that person and struggling with, well, we know the exact date and time that he's going to pass away, and we had like a week to prepare for it. And it was a struggle trying to wrap my head around, I'm going to lose this family member. I'm going to lose them on a certain day. And I don't know, it was hard to struggle with, yes, I believe he should be able to do this, but how do I deal with my emotions that go with it? So that's basically why I wanted to bring it up.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this was Sassy Heathen's idea, so definitely do not give me the credit. Catalina, would you want to do a quick sound check?
Yeah. Am I sounding okay?
Sounds great.
Sounding better?
Yes.
Okay.
And then if you could just turn your phone sideways, it should get rid of those bars. Bingo.
There you go.
All right. I'm sorry about that.
No.
Okay.
So Catalina, where do you stand on euthanasia / death with dignity?
So I would have to say that I think we all can agree that we don't like to see people suffer. I don't like to see anybody suffering. It's one of the hardest things to go through. It could be gut wrenching, but at the same time, I am against euthanasia for quite a few reasons. One of them, the main reason is from a Christian perspective. I feel like God is the one who gives life and takes it away. And there's no greater example than that of Jesus Christ, who died an excruciating death on the cross. And that him dying on the cross is, it would never give me an excuse to take away my pain for the suffering that I endure. here on earth. And one of the other reasons is mostly because I feel that, just the promise that we have after, with eternal life, it far outweighs anything that we can ever imagine here on earth. So for me, I had to watch my mom die a horrible death. She suffered from leukemia, and the leukemia itself was eating away at her body. She couldn't eat. She had blisters all over her mouth. She was bruising up all over her body. And, she caught a virus at the end, just a simple throat, something that got her at the end, simple throat infection or the virus. And she wasn't able to get chemo during that week. So she was terrified. She woke up one morning. She wasn't able to swallow. Her throat was swollen. So mind you, she was choking on her water. And for the first time, she said, that she was scared. She was actually terrified. And it was just a matter of hours before, they intubated her and they had to sedate her. But during that week, she, the leukemia, while it was eating away at her, she was getting other stuff, like not just the leukemia, but she was getting tumors all over her brain, and just everything started spiraling downwards. Now, for me, I always had a fear of dying. I always had a fear of leaving my kids, and that was my biggest fear. And I thought I could not live, I could not. I don't know what my kids would do without me, or even just losing one of my kids. But watching my mom die, a horrible, just not leaving us with, I feel like usually cancer patients, they're kept very comfortable. And in her situation, she wasn't really comfortable. I feel like she was intubated while she was scared and terrified. And watching her go through that made me realize that there was just a greater purpose, that when she passed away, it really eliminated my fear of suffering and death immediately. It was immediate. And watching her go through that made me realize that, that I'm willing to go through anything, just watching her die like that. So it took my fear away. It took my fear of losing my children or me, even, something happening to me. It just completely took that fear away. And I think, whether it's a small purpose or big purpose, I always feel that there's always a purpose. And that's something that I feel we can't take away from God. Looking at the life of Job in the Bible, I mean, his whole life was just, he was richly blessed. But at the end, he suffered a great deal. And he was the one who just said, the Lord gives and he takes away. But still, blessed be the name of the Lord. So that's my big reason why I choose, I believe with all my heart that euthanasia is not the answer.
Thank you, Kat. Erin, may I ask you?
I was going to say, can I speak to that? Like, because I have been pro death with dignity for a long time, even when I was a Christian, and I felt like when I was looking at the character of Jesus through the Bible and his main message of compassion, I could see that I kind of can put those two things together, and I view death with dignity or euthanasia as a very compassionate act. It's an act of love for that person if they have decided that they cannot no longer withstand the suffering, whether it's physical or mental. I think it's an act of compassion. And I remember kind of tying that into the message of Jesus as well, that compassion should, override some of these other things. So that's just one thing I wanted to kind of say to that. But I understand the idea of the sanctity of life and God's sovereignty over the situation and the blessings in it. But I have also seen people suffering. I've watched people die. I've experienced pain myself, and I feel like it's still up to the person whether they're able to continue forward, because not everybody has that view that everything is going to be rewarded afterwards.
Yeah, and that's where I totally understand that not everybody has that belief of the afterlife.
Dave, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I have, as you might expect, a lot to add. For those of you that are not familiar with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, you may, as I did before I realized I had it, I was aware that it was a thing, that it was fatal, and that it was bad. But I didn't know what it was about. And so since I've had it for a couple of years and been dealing with the loss of my functionality, of course, I've learned a lot about it, and I've gotten to know other people with it. You get drafted into a community when you get something like this. If you have cancer, you're in the cancer community. If you have ALS, you're in the ALS community, and so on. It's nothing anyone wants to join. But what happens is that your nerves quit communicating with your muscles, and so your muscles atrophy. I'm losing strength in my hands and arms. Simple things like buttoning buttons and opening packages and lifting a glass to my lips and eating are becoming more difficult, and have been for the last year and a half. It will get really bad. This disease progresses to the degree, if I let it go all the way to the end, it will progress to the degree where I can do nothing for myself. I'll be bedridden, unable to turn over, unable to dress myself, feed myself, bathe myself, and do anything. And I, as an individual who's been self-sufficient and independent my whole life, am not at all interested in becoming completely dependent on other people to do everything for me. I'm already having to have people do things for me here and there. I'm still fairly independent in that I can drive and I walk fine, and I can still talk fine. But as this thing progresses, my freedoms are going to be taken away, and I'm going to lose the ability to do more and more things. I am very happy that I will have an option to, when it gets to the point where I'm no longer satisfied with the quality of my life, because there is no cure and there is no treatment. There's nothing any doctor or medicine can do to make me better or to keep me alive. That's the sad reality of what I have. That's just in very blunt terms. So for me to be told that I have to stay in this condition until my life gradually ebbs away and I've suffered an extra year or 2 or 3 with a feeding tube and with a breathing mask on and unable to enjoy any quality of life whatsoever, for me to be told that that's my destiny, that that's my lot, and even to be told that that's God's will for me, is the height of non-compassion. As Erin said, it's compassion to say to someone, let me ease your suffering. Let me show you a way to ease your own suffering. That's compassion. The argument that I hear against death with dignity is that you're playing God. You're taking matters into your own hands. Wherein, as you mentioned, Catalina, it's God who gives life and God who takes it away. Well, I would hope that the God that's doing that would be a little more compassionate for people who are suffering needlessly, but that's not the way it works. My response to people who say you can't play God is to ask them, well, then, if you get cancer, are you not going to go have surgery? Are you not going to get chemo? Are you not going to take medicine of any kind? Because anyone who does any of those medical procedures is, in fact, playing God in that sense, and going to extraordinary measures to keep yourself alive. Well, the flip side of that is, why not go to some measures to end the life that no longer has a quality that anyone would be satisfied with? So this is a very personal subject for me. It's not a theory. It's something that I'm going to have to deal with in a couple of very short years. And so I'm on a bit of a mission to bring more awareness to this subject. I work with a group. We can talk more about it as we go along, I don't want to hog too much time because Ethan, as you know, I can talk and talk and talk. But there's a group called the Final Exit Network that I work with, which does not require you to live in a state where there's a death with dignity law on the books. You can do this anywhere in the country, and it's a wonderful organization that I work with on a regular basis, nonprofit, staffed with volunteers, and they will help someone like me have some control and some options as things get bad.
Thank you, Dave. Before we jump to Catalina, I'd like to welcome Craig Reed. Craig, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Craig.
He looks like a very young James Dean or something in that picture.
Catalina, so
the phone just rang. Can you? I look. The picture in the photo is David Bowie.
Oh, I can't.
Hold on. I gotta get
Okay, I see
be
it
back.
now. Yeah.
Catalina, may I ask your thoughts on that, on what Dave said?
Well, Dave, I just hearing your story, I mean, I have a lot of compassion for you, and actually just even thinking of all, how you're going to be in my prayers, even though, it may mean not much to you, but you are very brave, and you're right. I don't know what it even feels like. I can't even fathom. And, and I have had friends or know of people who have passed away from ALS. A friend of mine does a fundraiser every year for a close friend of hers. And, a husband of a friend who goes to my brother's gym also, passed away from ALS. And I also have a friend whose father passed away from Huntington's disease. So it's similar to that. And so there's been I've seen it around me. I haven't like seen it in person, but I've just people who I know who have dealt with that. And it's one of the hardest things that I don't even know how you go every day like that. So I can't speak to to what you're actually feeling. But I do know that, and I believe God's word, and I believe God, when he says in Ecclesiastes that, no one has power over the spirit or even over the day of their death. So I do believe that with all my heart. I really believe that there's always a purpose. And, as far as, having procedures done and going for chemo, I think I feel like there's a slippery slope, with that, even just with dying with dignity. I feel like, going for chemo or taking some medicine or going for a procedure, I really believe that God has blessed us with amazing doctors, and the same doctors that are actually fighting to find a cure for you. One of the things that many doctors have studied is, ALS in general. How does it affect a person? How long can a person, live with ALS, and things like that we would be taking away from medical research that I believe, that I believe we would lose by that. And not to say that I don't want to sound selfish at all. I really don't. But I do believe that they will lose a lot of that medical research by, because you never know, someone in your position may want to die sooner. Or, someone may die and there may be a cure that comes out in a year after. So just things like that I feel like why I feel we shouldn't, when I say we shouldn't play God, I feel that, in Genesis, the devil, obviously that was the lie. That was the big lie is, you can be like God. And so that's just the reason, one of the biggest reasons is I don't want to play God. I don't want to make that decision. As a matter of fact, when my mom was sitting there in the hospital, my father didn't want to approve a do not resuscitate because he didn't want to play God. And my mother had asked him, please do not resuscitate me. And she said, I don't, if this happens, before she actually went into the hospital, she had always told my father, do not resuscitate, just let me go. And he struggled with that decision so much, because at a time when they were actually asking us, I think it's time that you need to make that decision. He stood on his knee. He went on his knees and prayed, and he just asked God, please do not let me make this decision. I don't want to make that decision. And literally that day, that afternoon, they called us from the hospital that it was time for her to go. So it was almost like a huge blessing that my father did not have to make that decision. And he knew that he would never be able to make that decision as much as she wanted it. He knew that he just did not want to play that role of making the decision of when someone dies. And I feel like when we bring in other people for dignity, to die with dignity, I feel like now we're bringing in someone else to cause that, and I don't know, I wouldn't be able to live with myself to know that that I did that to someone, even if they were asking for it. So that's just my response to Dave.
Can I?
Yes, please.
I'm here now. Can I?
Absolutely.
Hi. So I got to hear a little bit of Erin, and actually I know Erin from Twitter. She doesn't know I know her, but I know her. And Dave's
I know
Dave's
who you are from
testimony.
Twitter too.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I didn't know you did.
Yeah.
I think in Dave's case, this is nuanced. I tend to side with on the Christian side a little. But in Dave's case, it's more black and white. A lot of these cases, so I'll tell you a story to complicate matters. And this is from the real world. When my wife's mother was on life support, now she put in the opposite of a right to die. She did a revive me. I'm not sure exactly what the order is called, but I want to be revived. I want to be kept alive. Something like that. And they were pressuring my wife to ignore it because of the cost of keeping her. And my wife was really attached to her mother. It was a very painful time. She was in the hospital around the clock. And, you can say the wisdom, but they were obviously doing it from a cost-benefit analysis. Like, it's costing X amount of dollars to keep this woman alive. We could use this bed it was a very fancy hospital, Mount Sinai, for celebrities who were waiting for the bed, basically. So there's nuance on both ends, is how I would see it.
That's a medical ethic. That's a medical ethics concern there, because they shouldn't be using coercion at all with these scenarios, like the patient or their the next in line to make decisions for them. They have that power of attorney, that autonomy over something like that. So that sounds horrible to me, but I feel like that's a health medical
totally
ethics
horrible.
violation.
But I'm just guessing that's more. I'm guessing that's more will become more of a reality than people would realize, because that would come into play where even the family might start pressuring, and that would be like the worst possible thing.
Another thing to keep in mind
I'll
with that, though, is another thing to keep in mind with that, though, is that that's not a problem that you run into in countries like Canada, where you have universal health care.
Yeah,
so that's strictly a U.S. problem, and in other countries where we have universal health care, we're not talking about, well, let's keep this person alive or not keep this person alive because money's a factor, because it's not a factor. So
Mindy, is there with the universal health care, is there a limit? Because I remember reading a story of a man who couldn't get any more in-home care. He had reached his limit and he ended up dying. I think it was, I forgot what he had, but he was in Canada. And I'll have to look up the story, but is there ever a limit to how much health care one can receive, like an in-home health care, where it's just, he's reached the limit, he can no longer get it, and he's stuck just suffering?
Even though we have universal health care across the board, each province has its own separate healthcare system. Like, I'm in Ontario, so we have OHIP, which is our Ontario Health Insurance Program, I believe, PEACE program. But it would depend on, like, I couldn't really answer that unless I knew the circumstances of what kind of care he was receiving. Like, because we have homes here in Ontario that are government funded, but then some people can go into privately paid homes, which are not run by the government, and like, so was he receiving private care? Had he applied for the public care? Like, it really all depends on what the circumstances were with his particular situation, because because I work with geriatrics, and I work with a lot of people that when they get older and they're moved into retirement homes and then nursing homes and all that. And we have a program here where if you're in a situation where he can't get care, he would get something that's called respite care, which is like emergency care. So if you've had a surgery and you're elderly and you need help, then you can temporarily move into a home and get 3 months of service, and then go back home and get like a different kind of service at home. So there's all kinds of different options. And so I would have to actually read the story to see, what exactly happened there.
And there's also the with the home health care aid. Like, I know in our province here, my grandma was having, she passed in October, and before we got her into the home, she was getting the home care, and she lives in a small town, and they just didn't have enough staff to go out and get out to her often enough. And that's why I was one of the people in the family that pushed for her to move to the home, even though she wanted to stay in her home, because there wasn't enough staffing to come out and do the things that she needed to be done. So it's just another, thing that can come up.
Jumping back.
Yeah.
Question, Catalina. Do you so you're opposed to it personally, but would you be opposed to it like specifically? Like, let's say Dave right now decides like this is the method he wants. Are you 100% opposed to that?
I would have to, and no disrespect at all, because I mean, it hurts me to know that, but I would have to say, yeah, I wouldn't want him to do that. I feel like he'd, I mean, who's to say like there's a cure, the year after he does it, or what if he had 3 more years or 4 more years? What if things started progressing instead of degressing? You just never know, right? And of course you obviously know you obviously know that it doesn't get better, but the chances are.
We can only work with the information that we have right now, though. And
yeah,
right
you can't base those answers
right.
on what if, what abouts, what ifs, what about this, what about that. In the whole history of ALS, no one's ever gotten better.
Right, and like you said, you only have what information you have now, and then it goes back to now you're allowing people to choose when to go. We're not going to have that information soon, so now we're just going to have the information we once had, and instead of the information that we can still have. So now you don't know when people are going to choose to want to go. For Dave, it may be sooner than someone else who may last longer or want to last longer, but you'll really, you're going to lose a lot of that medical research.
I don't think that the numbers are going to, just to say that someone can choose that. I don't think that everybody's going to choose that. Like you had mentioned earlier, like you could never do that because, it doesn't sit right with you. And I think from the studies that are coming out, it has a lot to do with the personalities. So the most of the people, sorry, Dave, I'll clump you in with it, but I was just going to say most people, but I was going to inadvertently clump you in with this. Most people who are choosing this option are people who have a kind of a strong will for life, and a strong desire for independence, and a strong, they have these things already in them as personality. So I don't think you're going to be losing the entire community of ALS patients or other likewise if this becomes a thing. I think it just gives people who will otherwise feel out of control of their situation, people who are feeling mental distress over not knowing what the future holds. I think it will give them some peace of mind, and ultimately there will be some people who choose it and some people who won't.
Yeah, it's a very personal thing.
Yeah,
and
that's the point.
It's
that's the point exactly. Is that no one should be telling me what I can and can't do at the end of my life when the quality is beyond something that I'm satisfied with. And yeah, everybody talks about the slippery slope, that, well, if you start making it legal, then everybody's going to kill themselves. No. You know what? Suicide is legal now.
Yeah.
You can kill yourself. It's not illegal. Everybody's not doing it because it's, so let's calm down about that stuff, you know. And the reality is, in the ALS chat rooms that I'm in several Facebook groups, and by and large, they're all Christians, you know, and by and large, they're all gonna hang on until the bitter end. And I'll say to them, that's your choice. If you want to gasp for a breath the last year of your life, and have someone feeding you through a tube and have someone changing your diapers, you have that choice.
Yeah.
Just don't take my choice away from me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
You
all.
shouldn't use someone, a Christian or whoever, a religious person shouldn't be using their belief to take the choice away from someone else.
That's right.
You don't have the right to use your belief to control somebody else's life.
And that's my problem with evangelicalism in America, is that it's by and large people trying to impose their belief system on other people and make laws to those effects and mandate how people live and think. And that is not okay with me. If you want to live your life and feel like you're going to live in a way that God gives and God takes away, that's fine. I don't believe those scriptures. Those things, those passages mean nothing to me. They used to when I was a believer. I used to believe they were the word of God. But now I just think they're words written by men. So I'm not putting any stock in what the scripture has to say. When that verse in Ecclesiastes said, no man chooses the end of his days, that's incorrect, because I, in fact, will.
Yeah. I think another important thought that had come to me over this was the fact that for people who are choosing the options, the medically assisted suicide, or because we called it MAID in Canada, I think it's called something else in the States. But for a lot of these people, they want to be well. They want to live their life while they still can in those moments. But if knowing that if they want to end it, they will be incapable of doing so. A lot of people will end up taking things into their own hands and ending their lives when they're still well, because they'd actually separate. In some cases, it actually does prolong their life somewhat, because they know that they have that option when they have truly come to the end of their road, rather than making sure they can take care of it before they become physically incapable of doing so.
Exactly. Yes, good point, Erin.
Craig, what are do you hear what was just said by chance?
I was bounced out. I just got back in. What, Dave?
What's that? I heard my name. I didn't hear the question. Did he ask a question, Ethan?
It cut out.
I couldn't hear it.
Oh. He's having trouble, I think.
So I think you guys bring up a great point of
I can't hear anymore.
No one's going to tell me when to like I should have the ability to take my own life whenever I want. But and Ethan, I know this is not something that's part of the topic, but see, from a Christian perspective, then I go to, well, we do it all the time with abortion. We're not giving that person the right to live. We're making that choice for them. So generally speaking, you do impose that on human beings, because there are people who, if you're pro-choice, you're allowing, or if you have an abortion, you're making that choice for that human being, because they're inside your body. They're not your body, but so that's from a Christian perspective, as far as looking at people who say, I don't want to impose my beliefs, my views, my thoughts on another human being and let them do what they want. We are technically doing that, because we're imposing the same thing on an innocent child who has not been given the right or the choice to say, I want to live. So in a way, we're doing that today.
I just want to say that those two things are not the same. Sorry.
Exactly.
No, not at all.
They're
Very, very different.
Not going to let that one slide by. Nice try, but no. No, no,
Yeah.
no,
Really?
no,
That brings
no,
up
no,
a whole
no,
different
no, no.
discussion.
So a child can
We're-
suffer
okay,
after death.
okay. I
most
think
fucking
Ethan, bring it back. We're not going to go down the fucking abortion trail, please.
Yeah,
I'm
Please.
happy to have this conversation with you some other time.
specifically
That's fine, but
on
I'm just letting you know that that's
Yeah.
my my perspective
that's
of
consistent.
imposing
That's-
something
of
on a
course.
human being.
And that's consistent with the Christian world perspective. Yeah.
Can I
And
ask?
that's okay, and that's that's just that's
Catalina,
a belief that we
I
have.
see a question in the chat. So, are you okay if your dog is suffering and is unable to walk and has tumors all over their body? Are you okay with putting them down, or should they just suffer needlessly until they expire naturally? What are your thoughts on that?
As far as a dog, yeah, I think we put our bunny down, when she was getting a whole bunch of tumors and things. So I don't, yeah, as far as like an animal, I probably would.
So you would
probably
show more
would.
compassion
More
to an animal than
compassion
you
for
would
the dog than a
to-
human.
Actually,
human,
it's,
yeah.
So why, I think my question
to
would
be
be
honest, it's not.
One at a time.
Oh.
why did you choose to put your bunny down?
More so because she was already filled with so many tumors to the point where I couldn't even spend any more money on the animal to get any more surgeries. We had spent so much money. And it was, we got to the point where we just couldn't do anything more for her. So we did put the bunny down.
And she was
As far
suffering.
as like,
But what was the?
she was suffering for a while. Yeah, she was suffering. I don't know. I don't even know the amount. I don't know to the extent of what the suffering that she was going through. I really don't. For us, it was a matter of we can't do anything else financially to do anything to try to save her.
So why not take her
we had
home?
to make the decision.
But why not take her home and let her die at home?
I don't know. I guess it was just time for the bunny to go. I really don't know. I don't know to be honest, like I don't know if it was more the compassion, more just like, I really don't know. I don't know if it was a financial reason, but
Well,
to say.
You do realize that you're saying that you have more compassion for the bunny than you would for me.
That's exactly what it is. I don't mean to stand up on you, but that's what it is.
It's not even. It's a difference of an animal and a human being. I cannot say that.
But it's
I
about
do have compassion.
We are animals.
No, you're not an animal. You're far from an animal.
Actually, we are technically. That's what science tells us. But
I don't believe you're an animal. So for me,
I'm not a plant.
Well, you're not a plant either. For me, I draw the line of I can't. For me, an animal is an animal. It does not have a soul. It's not a human being. I cannot play God with a human being. It's plain and simple. That's my belief. I will not play God with a human being. It's so different financially, or putting an animal down, or because maybe.
Finances is another legitimate issue here. There are people suffering in nursing homes, never going to get better, and
like
their life savings are drained out, keeping them alive for years.
I agree, and like Craig said, there's that slippery slope of, do we want to save money? And just for me, a human being is, it's more valuable. I would do anything in my power to do whatever I could. Watching my mom pass away, I would do everything in my power to just have one miracle, and hope that they would live. And it wouldn't be until, for me, I draw the line with God is the one who determines when a human being, a soul, is taken. And that's the difference between an animal and a human being. It's not that I have more compassion over one or over the other, because that's like saying I had more compassion for my bunny than my mom. You have to believe that it had something to do with the fact that deep inside, I refuse to play God. I refuse to say, I am willing to just...
With humans.
Right, with humans. That's to say that, I'm willing to just do this to my mom because I know she's suffering and she would have wanted to not suffer. That's just a choice that I'll never
when-
be able to make, and that I won't agree with anyone making.
I think one thing that keeps coming up for you is that you keep referring to it as if it's you or somebody, a doctor or a family member, doing something to someone else. So and so is taking so and so's life, and that's not the discussion we're having here. The discussion is having the person's choice to choose their own right to the way that they die. And there's different types of, like, a lot of, I think some of the fear and the misconception of is that it's going to be, you're in the hospital and you're incapacitated, and now the doctor is going to say, well, you know, that I'm done treating this patient, so I'm just going to give them this lethal injection now. And that's not what Dave signed up for. That's not what
that's not in Canada. That's not the process at all. It's actually a really complicated process.
It is a very complicated process. Yeah. And so
right. And so
most of the times these situations.
Never mind. Craig just dropped off. All right. Can I ask a clarification, Catalina? Were you saying like money was specifically a factor in
is in the bunny?
Yes.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I could keep on having surgery after surgery after surgery. They could keep on taking those tumors out. I mean, she had one surgery. She was on medication. They kept coming back. I could have kept spending money until she passed away. But again, it's to say that I have more compassion on an animal than a human is totally, it's your perception, just because I chose to let that animal die, to put it down. But I would never want to have that over my head on a human being. That's not something that I would ever want to have over my head.
Again,
you wouldn't have it over your head for somebody else, though. It would only be a choice that you can make
about
for
you doing it for someone else.
So if
I understand,
you keep coming back to this thing.
No,
it's not. It wouldn't be your choice.
I'm saying as a medical professional.
No, I'm talking about the individual. I'm talking about me,
right,
or Erin,
I know,
or Ethan,
but the
having
person
a
who
choice,
is gonna,
not someone doing it.
No, I know that. What I'm speaking of is as a medical professional, they will have that with them for the rest of their life.
You're wrong.
Can I break in real quick?
Do that?
In Canada, okay, can I say something real quick? If you are a doctor in Canada and you do not agree with it, you do not have to do it. So it's only specific doctors that sign up, take a course, and get a license to do it.
Exactly.
So if it goes against your beliefs, you do not have to do it. You go to a specific doctor that specializes in this. So it's somebody that would have to say, I want to do this, then I will do it.
But they will still have that with them. They will still have that.
And they understand that when they make that choice.
Right.
That's
exactly
not how everyone's minds work.
Real quick, Craig, are you is your audio working now?
It looks like he's muted.
Yeah, he's muted.
Well, that stinks.
Well, anyway, Craig, if you can unmute yourself, we'd love to hear from you. While we're waiting on Craig, let me respond to what was just said. I'm not here. Here's my situation. Final Exit Network is the organization I will use to exit this life. Okay, that requires no doctor. It requires, now I have to submit medical records. I have to show them that I have a terminal disease that has no cure and no treatment, which I do. And then when I'm ready, I will have the equipment I need. I will have everything in order, financially, legally, everything, medically, everything in order. There will be no doctor with anything hanging over their head. There will be no family member or friend with anything hanging over their head. It will be me, myself, an individual person with autonomy and freedom, making the choice to say, I've had enough of this suffering. I'm done with it. I'm ready to go. I lived a great life. I just had my 65th birthday yesterday. So if I've only got a couple more years, I've lived a really good life. I'm happy with it. And I'm going to go out on my own terms. I'm not going to suffer needlessly and wither away till I'm a vegetable in a bed being turned over so that someone can wipe my butt. Not going to do that. No thanks. Not ever. So that's the point I want to make, Catalina. It's not, you keep referring to, I would never want to make that decision. I would never.
No, I wasn't speaking to
It's
I feel like I have to explain
individual
that
choice.
Right. I understand that. I was speaking to the point of anybody who has to do that. So anybody who has to provide that stuff to you, anybody who has to approve that. I'm just saying in
They don't
general,
have
if whoever.
to. It's
I think
not
whoever-
someone,
yeah,
you're
I think-
acting like
whoever
someone's forcing
chooses
them.
whoever chooses to, it's still going to be on their. It's still going to be.
I think
on them
you are projecting a little bit
Absolutely
of how you feel about
projecting.
things, because if you look at how the doctors review these cases and their ethics that they go through and their check, like when it comes to the point where they're actually writing these prescriptions and setting up the end plan, it's a compassionate act. They've decided that person that is more harm will come to them if they continue on in the situation that they are, than to have them,
It's absolutely about compassion, and that's the key word.
So just a question, Dave. Are you for allowing euthanasia or dying with dignity for someone who's severely depressed or who just feels they can't live any longer?
Absolutely not.
Sorry?
No, absolutely not.
Who are you to tell them that they should live?
I'm not saying
to tell them when they should want to die?
You asked me if I'm in favor of it being available for anyone who's having a bad day. No, but I don't have to make
not
that
a bad
choice.
day. I'm talking bad years. Bad years. They've been sexually abused most of their life. They're miserable. They're severely depressed.
Yeah, if they want to end it,
think so.
absolutely. If they want to end it,
Okay, so now.
So
now
here,
you're gonna put guidelines on when someone should and shouldn't be able to.
No, I'm not the one doing that, Catalina.
No.
You're the one doing that.
Real
There
quick,
is, and there,
I'm saying everyone should have that choice. Ethan's trying to get control of it. Go ahead.
yeah.
no, so I would like to actually use personal experience to just ask your opinion on this to clarify. So, for about Catalina, as you know me personally. So for about 5 years, I was pretty miserable. I was depressed, had epilepsy. I was having seizures. I gained a lot of weight, and I literally, probably the only reason I essentially wanted to live was for my at the time wife. Now, let's say I didn't have that in place, and after 5 years, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. No medication's working. I am ready. Dave, Erin, Mindy, would you be in favor of me going through with death with dignity in that
If that was your choice? Absolutely, because it's your life and it's up to you what you want to do with it. And if you feel it's something like you don't want to keep going on, then who am I to say, no, you have to keep living? That's not my choice. It's not my life.
No, you're right. This is where I'm on the fence. And just so everyone knows, I am for death with dignity. However, I can say right now, looking back, I am very glad that wasn't an option or that I didn't do that.
Yes, mental depression has medication. There are lots of treatment options for a lot of mental illnesses. Go ahead, Erin.
I was just gonna say, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle here, because I do think that when somebody is suffering from depression, that it needs to be treated, like all the options need to be exhausted. So I don't think it's just that everybody who's in a, having a severe depressive episode, or someone who's struggled to find the right treatment could be immediately offered this as an option. But I think that when somebody is, suffering from like a long-term psychiatric illness and something that has a poor prognosis, that cannot or will not, or is medication resistant, and there's a whole bunch of other things that I think absolutely should be on the table for this. But it all comes down to this prognosis and this hope for getting better. If there's no hope that somebody is going to get better and they cannot live with that, I've read cases about people who have extreme PTSD from sexual assault, and people who have certain psychiatric disorders like personality disorders or schizophrenia or something, and the prognosis is glim. I think those people have the right to access the same program.
Real quick, Craig, are you there? Sounds like
Is there? Can you hear me this time?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, good, because I haven't been able to hear very much of it. But in the case of someone like Dave, right now he's conscious and he's fully cognizant. And I don't know exactly how the law works, but I don't really have a problem with him saying if I get into a situation, do not revive me or do not keep me going. But he's doing that as a conscious person. The part where I think a slippery slope is almost inevitable is when a person hasn't made any choice in the matter. Because then it's going to be decided by outside forces, and it won't necessarily be decided the way the person wants.
That's not how it works, though.
That's not how it works either. Because the minute that autonomy is in question, so if they're
Incapacitated.
Or they are incapable because they are unconscious or something like that, there is a medical ethics procedure. So the next thing that would come up would be, the non-malfeasance. So do no harm. So when a patient themselves can't advocate for their choice, then the doctors have a separate, order.
So there's a default choice that goes into effect?
There's default choice, and the default choice
is that state by state?
That's probably. So, but
what happened to the old? So I did read the story, and I think Larry was one who posted about it. But the old lady, was it in New Zealand, who had changed her mind, and her family convinced her to not change her mind, and they went through with it anyways.
Well,
I mean, this lady at the last minute, she made a conscious decision.
That would probably come down to the future planning and the fact that they may have thought that she had been consistent with this plan for a really long time. She had this, and then at the end, maybe the competency level was not there, and so they defaulted to her entire plan.
Well,
if she's terrified and she's saying no,
well,
doesn't that
if I can just add something really quick.
Go ahead, Mindy. Yes.
So when my grandfather, when he went through with this in May, he had a stroke. So they were worried about him not being cognitively aware and being able to make the decision. So they still had 2 doctors and a lawyer come in and speak to him to make sure that he was still capable of making the decision. And they also told him that right up until they give him the medication, he had the option to say no. So it's not that they were trying to pressure him, but they gave him the option to change his mind at any time, right up until the end.
Yeah.
So,
in this case, she did. In this case, she did change her mind, and they still went through with it.
Yeah, see, we could have anecdotal evidences of any direction you want to go. You can pick out an anecdote and say, what about this and what about that? We're talking about big picture ideas here. We're talking about big picture laws and things that are not available now. And that's what the problem is. We're not talking about anybody.
But David, it's going to be different in every country. It's not going to be the same. Even state by state, it's going to be different.
No.
So you do have to talk about that, because it's not going to be the same.
You're not correct there. Sorry.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not talking about legislation. I'm not talking about death with dignity laws. Yeah, there are like a handful of states in the U.S. that where they have laws on the books. But I'm just telling you, even those laws are problematic for me. For instance, the law, most of them are patterned after the law in Oregon. And that law has a 6-month death window signed by 2 doctors. In other words, 2 doctors have to sign off that Dave is going to be dead in 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I'm in a 6-month window, I'm in really bad shape. And I'm going to be gone long before then. So those laws would not even help me.
Yeah, and there's loopholes with the Oregon law too, because if you were a diabetic who decided to stop taking your medication within 6 months, you would, same thing. So they would also there's a lot of loopholes with that one. So
yeah,
I'm not
talking about the laws. I'm talking about an organization that I work with that helps me put things in place so that when my situation gets untenable and I'm no longer, for me, listen, it's not about the length of days that I live. It's about the quality of the moments in those days. Yeah. And when the quality of the moments is beyond what I'm comfortable with, I'm ready to go. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not worried about what's next. I don't believe there's an afterlife. I believe this life is what we have. And that's why I'm focused on making the most of this life. And don't misunderstand. I am not a person who's anxious to die. I'm not someone who's saying, oh, let me at it. I want to end my life. I'm trying to suck the marrow out of the bones of life. I'm living as long as I can, as well as I can. I'm pissed off right now because COVID has shut me down. I was supposed to be traveling in Europe and speaking, and I'm not able to. So I'm living as much life as hard as I can, as long as I can. But when the quality of that life becomes unquestionably bad, then I want to have the choice and the option to say, I'm done.
Let me ask Craig Reed. Let me ask a clarifying question from you. From like a Christian stance, where Catalina, for example, said she doesn't want to play God, but you're a Christian. It sounds like you don't agree with that. Is that correct? And is there anything within Christianity that is specifically saying that you shouldn't be in favor of this?
I think he's muted again, Ethan.
Craig?
I can't hear him. I don't know if he's. Oh, he is muted.
If
Yeah.
you unmute. Darn it! Keep losing Craig.
Craig,
I can't
David,
hear
there
what
he
Ethan's
is.
saying.
okay,
I could
go ahead.
hear some of the conversation, and then when Ethan starts talking, it's all quiet, and I'm like, gosh, I have no idea what he's saying. So I couldn't hear it.
Can you hear me now?
What did Ethan say?
Yeah, we could hear you. Craig, can
Yeah,
you
I could
hear me?
I could hear most of the conversation between you and Dave, and it's just when Ethan starts talking, I can't hear a single word he's saying.
So you can't hear me right now.
I can't hear you.
Okay, can someone ask him to
I can see that you're talking.
What was it you asked, Ethan? Say it again. I wasn't listening.
so if you could ask him from a Christian worldview,
A Christian, yeah.
is he saying that he's like Catalina's not in favor of it because she doesn't want to play God? However, it sounds like Craig Reed is in favor of it. Is there anything in Christian doctrine that would prevent people being in favor of it?
So, Craig, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't hear him.
Okay, well, I'll interpret for Ethan because he's speaking Ethiopian.
Well, that's what he does that. He tends to do that. I noticed that.
He asked if you as a Christian have any qualms about death with dignity. Is there anything in your theology that prevents you from embracing that? Did I ask that right, Ethan? Okay.
That's a good question. I'm not sure if my fear of it, and I don't think it applies in your case, Dave, because you seem to be conscious and you seem to have made a decision. And I think there could be safeguards, ethical safeguards, so that that doesn't happen to people who don't want it.
Right.
If I'm understanding the laws properly. Theologically speaking, I think that would be up to an individual person. Like, obviously, that's why my mother-in-law said, do not under any circumstances, keep me alive because I want to. That was a theological decision. So I would leave the theology up to the individual. I don't know what I'd do in my own particular situation. I'd probably pray to be taken out. I'd be like, God, please kill me. Please
Take me,
kill
God.
today."
Take me,
Exactly.
God. Take me.
Like, this is it, man. Just please make
Well,
it.
no, I understand your hesitation there because obviously there are gray areas here. I'm not going to pretend there are not. It's not a black and white binary situation. There are gray areas involved, and every situation is different. There just need to be more options, in my opinion. That's all.
Well, I don't actually know, and I'm sure you guys already said this, so I apologize because I couldn't hear it. But what is the actual law concerning someone like you? And it's different from state to state, right?
Yeah, there's only like 8 states where it's legal for a doctor to assist someone like me in medical. I just lost all the. What happened? I just lost all.
They're showing the laws.
I was showing.
Gotcha. There's a lot of detailed laws, but there are a lot of restrictions, and like I mentioned earlier, there's the one restriction that I found problematic was that I have to have a 6-month death window, I call it.
Right. What's the logic of that restriction? Is
Well,
that trying
they
to
just-
safeguard against?
They're trying to safeguard against someone prematurely pulling the trigger, so to speak.
Okay.
In other words, I have to be really, 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 really bad in order to
Now,
access that law.
Let me ask you a question, Dave, and you might have answered this, so I apologize. Where would you rather err? On the side of someone pulling the trigger too quickly, or where do you, obviously there's going to be a gray area no matter how you make the laws, right? Because there's individual situations.
To me, I don't see it as erring. I mean, my life is going to degenerate. My
Right.
symptoms are going to progress. I'm going to lose the ability to do things. I'm aware of this. I deal with this every day when I get up. And I just, to me, it's not a lot, an area where I'm going to err on something. It's just when I get to that point, and I may draw a line in the sand and say, when I get to this point, I'm done. And I may move that line, and I reserve the right to change my mind because it's my life.
Can I just say that that's a horrifying reality? I empathize deeply.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. It sucks. I wouldn't wish this.
So
on,
I would never want to
Donald Trump.
I would never want to decide for you, but at the same time, and I don't know how you do this legally, I would also want to protect you from emotional decisions that you might make in the moment that, do you understand what I mean? There's a really complicated gray area here.
Well, here's the thing. I'm this group I'm familiar with, the group I'm working with, Final Exit Network. I know for a fact that a large percentage of the people that sign up with them never even use their service. In other words, they don't
go through with it.
They get everything in place. They get everything in place. They have all the equipment they need. They have everything in order. And then they decide, you know what? I'm just going to let things play out. But what happened is they got the freedom. They got the choice. They got control. And that's all they wanted was control. They wanted that choice. And that made all the difference for their peace of mind.
Right. I mean, I'm not opposed to it.
Dave, what do you think? Wondering, what do you think? Why do you think some of them change their mind? Like, why do you think some are willing to just say, you know what, I'm just going to suffer. I'm just going to go through this. Why do you think that is?
I think it's an individual choice in a situation. They may have grandkids around. They just want to see the grandkids play one more time. They may have a wife or a husband, and they just want to hold their hand one more night and watch a movie. But that's the beauty of it. They get to make the choice. That's the beauty of it.
Dave, can I ask you a weird personal question? Do you have significant others, and how does that affect your choice? Do you think you're helping? You do not?
I do. I have a huge swath of friends. I have a partner. I have a lot of people in my life who care a great deal about me, and so I'm very aware that the ending of my life will. Here's the reality. When I die, I don't wake up the next day. It doesn't affect me at all. I go to sleep. I don't wake up. I have no awareness of not being alive. Who it affects are the people I leave behind. The people who love me and care for me and want and love me in their lives. They're the ones that are losing, because I'm a great guy and they're really going to miss me.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. I feel the same way. If I were tell that to my wife, you're going to miss me, Jennifer. You better appreciate me while you have me.
Damn it, you're going to miss me.
So Catalina,
how does it weigh into your decision at all in terms of either deciding to not do it or do it?
Absolutely. I mean, I will probably stick around longer for the benefit of those people than for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
I forgot Craig Cantor.
Yeah, totally. And I guess what you're trying to advocate for is
it's just me and Craig talking now.
They took over the show. What are we going to do?
A single word. I couldn't say anything. I'm just like, I'll be quiet and someone else can talk.
No, it's good. It's good, actually. Good. We're good. Glad to hear
Ethan says, keep going.
Yeah, keep going. I just
so I guess what you're advocating for is kind of a gray area position, if I'm understanding it correctly. It's not there's a hard, fast rule.
No, it's not black and white. It's not binary. It's not in or out. And that's the thing. Coming out of Christianity, where the world is binary and black and white and right and wrong and good and bad, it's that there is so much gray area. But what I'm advocating for is choice and control, and that's what's missing now.
Yeah.
So,
would you agree?
And what is Erin saying? Is she on your page?
I'm just nodding. I'm nodding.
Nodding along.
She's saying, "Amen, brother. Preach it, brother."
I feel like.
And how much did you pay her ahead of time to do that? Here's $20. You're just not alone.
I'm not in a situation, but I can put myself in a situation in small amounts. I have a really painful health condition, and I know that it could get really bad one day. And so I like I said, I've been a what do you call it? I've been pro this decision for a long time, even as a Christian, because I recognize that need to have that peace of mind and to have a little bit more say in how you go out. So I'm just cheering for Dave right now.
No, it is. It's hard because there are people. I'm seeing the chats and the people talking about caring about me and my toppling statue, and it's hard on them. I'm aware of that. I'm aware that the people I leave behind are affected a lot more than me, and so that's why I'm not in any hurry. It's just I want to have that option. That's all.
Mm-hmm. And you deserve that.
Catalina, so knowing that, for example, Craig Reed being a Christian is okay with this. What are your thoughts on that? Specifically, since, from my understanding, there's really no Christian doctrine that would be against it.
I mean, I still stand with the way I believe. I mean, I feel, again, and it's something that you guys don't agree with, even as a Christian. I mean, if you feel that you are for it, again, I mean, I would ask, I mean, if I really believe that what God says is true, and which Dave doesn't, I have to stand by what he says, and if I really believe that is true, then there's no, it's not for me to say that it's okay. And that's just the way, that's just the way I feel, the way I believe. There's no, and Dave, I know you say it's black and white. There's no gray. And I feel there's a reason why. So I don't, I'm not God. I don't know why. I don't know, what could be, what could have been. So I just feel like it's not, I'm way too small to even make a decision and say, like, you know what, I'm for that. I agree with that. Go ahead and do it. I do feel like, if it becomes available to, I feel like there is going to be that slippery slope, whether we believe it or not, or whether we say, it's so difficult to actually get that approval. There are people who have gotten the approval. There's people who have been depressed or had severe mental issues that have gone through with it in other countries. And there's
That's
people
approximately
who
1%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so, but it's a slippery slope. It doesn't matter if it's one person.
I don't think it is a
doesn't
slippery slope.
matter.
No, it's not a
But no,
slippery
it's
slope.
not.
I'm going to push back against that.
Yeah, I'm going to too.
Yeah,
not a slippery
And that's
I'm
because
just
you're
gonna let
saying that
slide.
it's, that a very small percentage.
That's because
Well,
we've
I mean, but
seen
it
it happening already for 15 years in certain countries, and we have some numbers coming out now, and we know that it's not just a slippery slope.
No.
That anybody who is depressed can go in and they qualify, or So I think the narrative needs to change around that a little bit. That it's not just a free for all. It's not just everybody who's having a bad day, had a bad breakup, or has a chronic illness that some people would think is intolerable. It's not a slippery slope.
No, and I understand where you're coming from, Catalina.
Yeah,
I used to live in that world, and that world is very black and white. You're either saved or lost. You're either right or wrong. You're either in or out. You're either going to heaven or going to hell. And I find that it's a very unfortunate way to live, in my view, because it restricts you from being compassionate and being compassionate and being open-minded and being. No, you've already showed us that you are more compassionate for your bunny than you would be for a human being like me, and it's because your theology dictates that. And I've learned since I've come out of Christianity, and I've been a free thinker and a secular person. I've learned that my theology limited me a great deal in terms of how I treated people and in terms of the kind of compassion I had for people.
In the secular world, we have to wade through these gray areas. We head into them, and we face them, and we battle with them, and we struggle with it, and we, it's not
Yeah, there is nuance. There's gray. There's not
Yeah.
black and white.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah,
It is
and Dave,
hard.
I could see what you're saying. I mean, I was a non-believer for many years. So I have lived that life of believing I could do what I want. I have the choice. The decision is mine. I've lived that life. So I know the different lives of, what I think is right, what I think is wrong. So for me, I'd rather live this way. But to say that I have no compassion I feel it's wrong.
No, I didn't say that. I
Yeah.
said you had more compassion on a bunny
I had
than
more
you do on me.
compassion for a bunny. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll correct myself.
The facts kind of bear that
I'll
out.
correct
Sorry.
myself. But no, because Dave, you don't believe what I believe. So
No, I don't.
believe that there's right.
But
so for me, you can't tell
believe-
me that I have more. Oh.
Catalina, like
Okay, so let me
I
finish.
believe what you believe.
Okay, so for me, there's something greater on the other side. If you don't believe that, then for me, there's something far more greater that you would experience on the other side than any suffering that you would have.
Why don't
An
you
animal is not.
Wouldn't
an
you be
animal
in a
is
hurry
not
to
gonna
get
have
there
that.
then?
Exactly.
In
what I
a
was gonna
hurry to
say.
pull the plug and get there?
To be honest,
that
I'm in a
better
hurry
on the
to
other
get
side.
there now.
Huh?
To be honest, I'm in a hurry to get there now.
Well, go.
I'm
we're
saying, to
trying
be
to
honest,
get laws in place so that you can go quicker and be with Jesus quicker.
It's not like that, though. It's not like that.
Catalina,
me,
can I ask you a question?
Of course I desire that. I desire a greater, something better than this world. I do desire that. I desire that every day.
This world is just fine without any heaven at all. This world is beautiful and awesome, and I'm happy to be here, and I don't need an afterlife. Okay, Mindy wanted to say something.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, so
Sorry,
Catalina,
Ethan. I'm sorry. I just.
Oh, you're good.
I know that you said that you are against it, that you wouldn't choose it for yourself. And you understand that there are others out there like myself and Dave who don't believe and would make that choice for themselves. So are you saying that you would be against supporting a law that would allow us to make the choice for ourselves? Like, yes, I'm going somewhere with this.
Right. I mean, if I believe that it's not okay to do that, of course I'm going to not go for a law that obviously approves that.
So
that's because I believe that it's not okay.
Okay.
So I mean, you're asking me a question that.
Go ahead, Mindy.
This is a question that comes up with me often with Christians anyway. So you believe, Dave does not. So why do you believe that your belief in a God should trump the decisions that he makes about his own healthcare? Why is your belief more important than what he decides for himself? Because that's essentially what you're saying when you're saying you don't believe that he should make that choice for himself.
No, what I'm saying is I won't vote for that. It's my choice to vote, and my vote is going to be based off of what I believe. So you don't
believe that other people.
Your vote is saying I should have that choice. Your vote is saying that I think the way you do.
Right. Your belief in God is more important than someone else making a choice about their own health care. That's what I was trying to determine.
Sorry, what was Ethan saying?
That your beliefs. Oh, sorry, I didn't hear Ethan.
No, I just let's let everyone finish their thoughts, if we can.
So my belief is that I don't agree with it. So obviously, for me to vote against what I don't agree with is going against what I believe. So I'm not going to go against what I believe. Just because that's what I believe. I'm not going to go against what I believe, for the sake of someone else. If I believe what I believe is true, if I believe that with all my heart, that what I believe is true, why would I go against that? Why would I vote against that?
Would anything ever be able to convince you to change the way you believe?
I don't know. You know what, Dave? Maybe if I was going through what you went through, I wouldn't know. To be honest, I don't know. And that's why I said from the beginning, I can't imagine unless it happens to me physically. I don't know what it feels like. I don't know what my mom felt like. I really don't know.
You can't imagine it. Oh,
go ahead, Erin.
I find it hard to understand how you couldn't even imagine it, like even put yourself in their footsteps, in their place, even for
no,
a hypothetical.
I could imagine that.
Because
I could imagine it. And you know what? I can also, Erin, I could imagine that. I could imagine wanting so bad to just be done with life. And you know what? I can also imagine someone who's severely depressed who has said, just let me go. I can imagine the amount of pain that they've been in. It's happened to family members where it's just like, let me go. I want to go.
And the prognosis,
I can imagine.
Prognosis, were they able to get better?
Right. But whether it's sometimes it's up, it could be up and down.
That's a different ball game.
Yeah.
It's a different ball game.
I understand, but you're asking me if I can imagine. Of course I can imagine.
You told me you couldn't.
I can imagine in any. I did say I could. I said like if I could imagine, like the person who's going through the depression,
Mm-hmm.
I can understand the pain that they're going through. I can say yes, like when they're begging to end their life, I can imagine the feeling of wanting to just end my life or be done with life. I did say that, didn't I? So
maybe I misunderstood.
In both scenarios, whether you have no way of getting better or you have some way of, there could be hope. I can imagine the amount of pain. Now, what I did say was, I don't know actually what decision I would make if I were to ever be in Dave's shoes. Like, I don't know if my decision would be, you know what, I am going to end my life. I changed my mind. That I did say that I just don't know. I don't know what decision I would make. But can I imagine? I can imagine Dave saying, at this point, I just don't want to live anymore. I can imagine a severely depressed person saying, just please let me end my life. Let me go. I can imagine that pain of wanting to just leave. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
yes,
and
that's
sorry.
where
perhaps I misunderstood
that's where I have compassion.
I think that when you come to a place where you don't actually, you haven't actually experienced it, but you have people in your life like Dave who can tell you what it is, and I think it's valid to listen to him. What is his experience? He is saying that in his situation, this is what he wants to do, and I don't think anybody has the right to be like, you don't get to, because I might not feel that way. I might not feel that way.
Let me ask you a
right.
question.
And you know what? And I respect, Dave, I respect your decision. It's not something that I would, that I'm not going to condemn you to anything. I'm not someone who would say, oh, Dave, you know what, you do that, you're going to hell. That's not who I am. I would never condemn anyone, because I don't know their heart to their dying
care anyway.
as an atheist, I'm going to hell anyway.
And right. And you don't,
going to hell
you don't.
So real quick,
and you know what, but I'm just saying, I would never
Ethan,
pose any judgment on you for that.
thank you. Yes, I appreciate that.
So Catalina, real quick, to circle back to Mindy's question, and rephrase it.
Somebody's got a dog.
Sorry, that's my dog.
I get you wouldn't necessarily vote against your interests, but let's say right now there was a law being passed to legalize death with dignity. Would you specifically go out and vote against that, or would you just leave it be?
Good question.
You mean like would I leave it blank?
Right, correct. Like if it was just specific to that topic law, would you leave it blank, or would you make sure to check the box that says, no, I'm going to restrict it?
Honestly, I don't know. Would it make a difference if I did no or blank?
What if your vote was the deciding vote?
Right. And you could either
You're gonna either vote no.
Now you're putting pressure.
I'm saying no.
You're putting me in a position. I mean, look, looking at Dave's situation, I can honestly say I don't know. Again, like if I was in that situation, I don't know what my decision would be, right? I don't know what I would decide if I would want to live or not. As far as like a vote goes, I would have to stand by my belief. I would have to stand by, I don't want this to happen, because there's so many things, I feel like there's so many things that could happen. So it's not something that I feel like I would vote for. I'd probably vote against it.
And that's why the laws exist. That's why we're not able to take matters into our own hands. That's why we've got this issue, is because people like you vote against it and say, no, 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 you can't play God. And then people like me have to suffer needlessly. And a question I have is,
But you're kind of asking a question that
a question I have is, if your view is that we should let God be the one that determines when someone's life ends. Well, let's look at my scenario then. If I let that play out, then I'm going to become basically a human vegetable. And God, if he's omnipotent and all loving, he should be able to ease my suffering or to heal me or something besides just letting me lay there like a vegetable. But he doesn't. And so the only answer is to let this compassionate God let me die out over a year or two of needless suffering. Where is God's compassion in that?
Dave, his compassion is in the mercy and the grace that he has for someone in the afterlife. That's that's a huge compassion and mercy. It is.
A person like me who's an atheist that doesn't believe in an afterlife. You can't impose that on me.
You don't believe in
you can't
if
impose
you don't
that on
believe
me.
in the after, then you can't talk about a compassionate God.
Oh, exactly.
You cannot talk
and let
about
me have the choice. You're the one saying that this God of yours is compassionate. Where's the compassion in that? He's letting me lay there like a vegetable.
And I'm explaining where the compassion is, but you're refusing to accept that.
Oh,
so
I understand what you're saying.
If you're not going to accept his compassion and his mercy of the afterlife, then there's really it's not a topic that we could even talk about, because we'd be going in circles.
You're right. Yeah,
I'm believing that the compassion. Yeah, right.
You believe that there's an afterlife, but I believe that this life is the one we have. So anyway, yeah, we're different there. Hey, I want to say hey to Bevan, and I want to say hey to Kristen.
Yeah.
Hey, Catalina. So, for example, one of the members in the audience, Divine Disbelief, he told his partner that if his PTSD medicine stops working or he develops dementia, he wants to die. He has said that he wants and he has a DNR. Are you against that? Knowing that his medication could stop working and he could end up with dementia.
And he could end up with dementia?
Yes, like for example, if his PTSD stops working, his PTSD medicine stops working, or if he develops dementia, he's already made it known that he would want to die, and he has a DNR. Are you against that? And are you against the DNR?
Oh, are you going to ask Dave first what he thinks?
No, I'm asking. It's specific.
For me?
Yes.
So I think I would actually kind of agree with what Dave says. It's a gray area. I mean, no, actually, maybe I'm not agreeing with what you're saying, because you're saying still let them decide, right? Like he should be able to decide. I think at one point you said, no, they shouldn't. And then at one point you said they should be able to decide. For me, I wouldn't agree with it. I mean, I don't agree with it at all. Is he choosing to die like right as soon as his meds stop working? Is he choosing to die like once he starts feeling pain? I can't say whether I would agree with it or not. I mean, I could say that I probably wouldn't agree with it, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Okay. And what about DNR specifically? You are against those or for them?
DNR, I've never really, so for me, I used to say that I always wanted a DNR. I used to say that, like, do not resuscitate me, let me go. But you know what, I think that, I think a DNR is a little bit different. I think that if someone is dying naturally, that, you're doing, I feel like that's a bit different than dying with dignity. So someone's heart stops beating and they're passing away. For me, I feel like at the moment, I probably would think that I wouldn't want the DNR, but I think that I would actually go with trying to resuscitate. And that's,
But wouldn't that be going against God's will as well, though? Because if you were dying, that would be God's will, would it not? So why would you be able to intervene and bring someone back to life?
Right, and Mindy, that's where I was actually. That's where I'm torn between the DNR, because right, my mom doesn't agree with like wouldn't have agreed with the dying with dignity, but she wanted a DNR, and for her, she believed that, you know what, it's happening naturally. Let me just go. So that's, and I will admit that's like something gray for me, that I really don't know what I would actually end up choosing, because sometimes I think, like, do not resuscitate, let me die naturally. If I'm dying, I'm dying. And then at the same time, I'm thinking, well, you know,
don't you think?
I'm sorry?
I said natural death could be awful. And in some ways, in your worldview perspective, you could say that God helped create the medicine to help us ease the suffering and end the lives sooner.
Yeah, and again, as far as the DNR goes, I really don't know.
If he gave the doctors the information on how to give somebody the most peaceful death that we can, is that not consistent with taking medication for an illness?
Taking it for an illness to try to get better? No, to me it's different. You're taking medication to get better, not to leave.
But what if death is better? That's what
medication and having surgery, playing God and taking matters into your own hands and not leaving them in God's hands.
Yeah. So is it just a cutoff line?
I don't think that is. I think that's so different.
Why is that?
How?
You're playing
because
God. You're the one that's intervening on the natural course of events. You've got cancer, and instead of letting cancer run its course, because God let you get the cancer, let cancer run its course. You're going to die soon. You go to heaven. Instead, we get the surgery and we get the chemo. And to me, according to what you're saying, that's playing God.
Yeah. If I would have let God take charge of me, I would have been dead at 12, because I've had 3 life-saving surgeries, and that was definitely.
So what is it? What is it, Erin? Is
into our own hands.
So, Erin, what is it? I'm sorry, but you just said by going through or was it Dave, by going through surgery, you're playing God. So what is it? Are you playing God by going through the surgery, or are you not playing God? But Erin's saying she took it in her hands. You just said I'm taking it in my hands, not God's hands, when I went through 3 life-saving surgeries. So you're saying something different.
I'm stepping back into your Christian worldview because I was a Christian at the time.
You just contradicted yourself to what Dave was saying. You were agreeing with.
I asked you the question.
Yes, Dave is saying that you're playing God by going through surgeries, and you're saying you are not playing God. You went through it on your own, on your own. So what is it? Is it so? In order for me to agree with anything like that, you have to tell me. No, you said you took it in your own hands, not God's hands.
I'm playing God. Yeah.
Yeah, she was playing God in that instance by going through getting medical procedures and medicine.
Because he wasn't doing anything.
Because God wasn't showing up.
And I would have been dead at 12.
So why isn't that playing God, Catalina?
Because I feel that God put doctors out here for a reason, not to end life, but to try to save life.
So
I
don't
believe that
is helping the doctors now, and God has given us chemo for
yeah.
cancer now, but he didn't 100 years ago or 200 years ago. So if you got cancer 300 years ago, too bad.
Well,
God hadn't given the doctors the wisdom that he has now. Why was God taking so long to come up with these things?
Why? First of all, I don't understand why it's God that's taking so long to come up with things.
Your premise is that God is the one that's given the doctors the wisdom and the surgery skills.
Yeah, we're stepping into your world.
I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
An internal critique, if you will.
God is the one that's given the doctors wisdom, and God is the one that is taught them how to save lives now. How come he didn't 500 years ago?
Was cancer rampant 500 years ago? I don't know.
We don't know. People died at the age of 40
so I can't.
from any
I
number of
can't
things.
say
They
that.
weren't
I
living
can't-
till
I
80
can't say-
because God hadn't given the doctors the wisdom yet that he has now.
My great grandma died
Actually,
at 32 from the same condition I have, and I'm 34. So 100, a little over 100 years ago, my condition would have killed me.
This sucks to be born 100 years ago, Erin.
God's more compassionate to me in the year 2003 or whatever it was, to my grandma who came over here from Germany.
see, Erin, and I think that, I feel that was something the doctors were able to save your life. They didn't do it to take your life. And it's different for me. I don't believe that.
Yeah, but the same doctors would be there for me.
What is the point?
The point is,
What is the point?
There for me. I am
If a doctor,
here's the
if
point.
a doctor
let me
knows
crystallize
that
it.
there's a
Let me
cure for
crystallize.
something.
No. You're missing the point. Your objection to me ending my life on my terms is that I'm playing God. My counterpoint to that is that every time someone does surgery or takes medication to prolong their life, they're playing God. Your counterpoint to that is that God is giving the doctors and the medicine, and God is helping us save lives. Well, how come God wasn't doing that 100 years ago? He's been around all this time. Why is he just
David, who's
now?
saying who's saying that he doesn't do that? He's been doing that since he's been alive.
There was
Jesus
no
saved.
chemo
Jesus
100
performed
years
miracles.
ago. There was no, he didn't.
You, Dave, there probably wasn't cancer. Who knows? You don't even know.
Of
when
course
cancer
there was
started.
cancer.
First case of
There's been
cancer.
cancer as long as there's been
You're missing the point completely.
Okay, so Dave, did Jesus not heal people in biblical times? Did Jesus not heal people in biblical times?
First
Now,
of
if you
all,
want to go
it's
into my
questionable
world,
whether
did Jesus heal
was
people?
even a real person.
in the narrative.
Exactly.
In the
So
narrative,
that's where we.
in the
So
narrative,
that's where
he
we
did.
can't have the discussion.
Jesus
Ethan,
thought
do you
people
understand
with
we can't have a
epilepsy-
discussion because if I bring
Jesus thought
up
people with
Jesus,
epilepsy had demons. I'm
do you
sorry.
see where this is going?
We're on
So
different
if you
planets here.
want to talk about God and you're not letting me talk about God, then
No,
we don't
I
have
have.
anything to talk about.
I'm just saying you're
I
missing
asked
the
you a
point about how
question.
how we're playing God.
So time out real quick.
Okay.
Ethan,
You know what? You're fine. That's
take
fine.
control
That's
of
fine.
this.
Yeah, we only have a
That's
few.
fine.
Dean Meadows, another Christian, had some
No
input
comments.
before we go. Dean.
Hey, I guess I want to come at this from a completely different
Oh, good.
perspective. Maybe not necessarily the Christian atheist issue, but maybe more along the lines of a political government issue is, and I don't, once again, I am not trying to be offensive here, but I would like to ask Dave a question if it's possible.
I'm gonna get so offended.
Okay. So you said earlier.
You're gonna make him angry.
That's okay, I guess. You said earlier that
I'm just kidding.
something to the effect of that when Catalina voted against it, it was a vote for you not to die, whether it was peacefully or something along that lines. I guess my question is, why should any country's population put tax dollars towards you wanting to end your life when just at the very foundation and root of it, you have control over whether you end your life regardless of whether there's this medicine?
Are you asking why he doesn't just help himself with a?
I'm not
Well,
sure. I'm not sure where the tax dollars come into play.
Me neither.
So, for instance, if you were hospitalized, right, and you were as you said earlier, a vegetable like that, I guess my question is, Catalina vote to give her tax dollars away so that you can essentially end your life?
Again, I'm not sure where the tax dollars come in, Dean. You'll have to clear. You're jumping in on something. What do the tax dollars have to do with anything?
So, for instance, if you were in the hospital,
Yeah.
or if you were privately, or some type of medication that you would need to
Thank you.
medically assist you in ending your life.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, there would be either some type of funding that would need to make that
No,
consistently
I'd probably
available
just,
to people?
I'd probably just pay. If I took a medicine, it would probably be some medicine that I either
Now,
paid for out of my pocket
Dave,
or let me finish.
But
Either
right, but that
paid.
research has to be funded.
No, there's
That
medicine
research
right
has
now
to be
where I
funded,
can.
though.
No,
Right,
no.
I think
There's
Dave,
medicine right now.
Yeah.
In certain states that I can get.
Right, but it's been funded.
Dean,
Well,
do you still have
every medicine's been funded. What are you talking about? Of
Well,
course.
no, my question is, Dave, would you?
what are you
And once again, I'm super ignorant about rights and stuff like that. Is there medicine out there right now where you could just buy it over the counter to get
No.
it? Would you have to see a doctor to
you'd
get
have
it?
to see a
Of course
doctor?
you have to see a doctor, unless you go get rat
Right,
poison
so-
or something.
I was just going to say that I think that is this question.
So that's
I mean,
my point. So the doctor.
sorry.
We might have lost them.
I think
Oh.
the tax dollar thing is kind of a diversion that doesn't really
And it's
apply to anything we're talking about.
and it also just it encompasses a view of euthanasia that people they don't know what's actually happens during the
Right.
during it. It's like they picture it as this big, it's this theatrical thing, and the doctors are whispering in the hallway, and they come in and they inject you and whatever. That's not what's happening.
You know, just to get it down to real conversation here. The method that I will probably use, the method that Final Exit Network right now most uses, is no medicine at all. It doesn't cost anything. I get a canister of nitrogen. I get a plastic bag. I put it over my head. I breathe the nitrogen in. I go to sleep and I don't wake up. No tax dollars, no medicine, painless, no suffering. I go to sleep. I don't wake up. That's it. So these other questions about tax dollars and medicines and over-the-counter, those are just diversionary tactics to keep us from talking about what's really important here, which is control and choice.
Yeah. So we do have to finish up here. So I would like to.
Yeah, because I got to pee.
Real quick, in a minute or less, summarize your final thoughts.
I feel like I've talked too much already, so I need to shut up.
I'm going to give you the last word, Dave.
Okay, thank you.
Sassy.
Are we going with me? Are we? Oh, for me first. Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you.
And then also where people can find you.
Okay, I want to thank everybody, and I definitely want to thank Ethan for putting this all together, because it was my idea, but he executed the whole thing because I'm terrible at this. So thank you, Ethan, and thank you to everybody on the panel for being here and having me here. And you can find me on my YouTube channel, which is the Sassy Heathen, and you can find me on Twitter, Heathen Sassy. So come and say hi, come like, follow. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Erin, and you can feel free to include your final thoughts on this conversation.
My final thoughts are that this issue is an issue of compassion, dignity, respect, and autonomy. And I think that it's an uncomfortable conversation, but we need to have it, and we need to really not shy away from those nuanced, the nuanced parts of the conversation that might make us personally feel uncomfortable, because it's not about us, it's about the person experiencing it. So from there, I'm basically just on Twitter right now, and my page, it's ExXtian Erin or ExXtian Erin, but there's just ExXtian. So I really appreciate being on here. I'm not been on YouTube streamed a whole bunch yet, but I'm starting to get more involved, and I really appreciated getting a chance to meet Dave. We've been trying to connect for a while now, so that was really great. And I thank you, Ethan, for putting it on, and Mindy for organizing it, and Catalina for all your patience with everybody and everybody else. It was great.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, for now I actually can hear you. So I apologize for not really being fully at the party. I could hear about 20%, maybe 20 minutes of what was actually said. And then I could hear everybody but you and Mindy. I'm not, not hearing you. I was kind of okay with, but Mindy was
Oh, that's a good burn. Good burn.
Burn.
Yes, I was waiting for that for 20 minutes. I was like, at least I'm going to say one thing to make this worthwhile. I'm going to get Ethan with this. No, I don't know what the problem was. The last time I was on your show, Ethan, we were fine, right? I don't remember having a connection problem. So hopefully this won't happen again. I liked the conversation when I was there. Hopefully Erin and Dave, maybe you can pop on my channel. I have Craig Reed TCR. Today I just interviewed Antibot, the wife of the genetically modified skeptic. And I'm sure I'll be on Ethan's channel a lot. We've been trying to set something up with Puck and Jenna, and so we'll probably set something up on my channel in the future at some point. But this was fun while I was here. I was able to connect. It was good. I just wish the stream was working on my end, but I think it's your fault, Ethan. I blame you.
Fine, I'll take the blame. All right, Catalina.
I just want to say thank you, guys. Thank you for being patient and even in your frustration while listening to me talk. But Dave, especially you, I just want to thank you for your courage and for being brave and for going day in and day out, living like that. So I do, as much as you don't believe it, I do have a lot of compassion for you. And as much as you don't believe this either, you will be in my prayers. And just thank you, everyone. Thank you for the different points of views and for keeping it civil.
Thank you, Catalina. And before I let Dave close out, I would like to remind everyone to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you like what I'm doing, there's a link to the Patreon in the description. I'd like to thank my top tier patrons, Kenneth, Leonard, City PLAZA, Trina, Deluca, and Christian Watkins, who you could see was in a video last night for my call-in show, which resumes every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Daylight Time. But, of course, Dave, it's all you.
Well, thanks, everybody. Thank you, Catalina. You were patient, too, and I appreciate the dialogue with you. And, no, I do believe you're compassionate. I didn't mean to come across that way. I want to say thanks for Ethan. Ethan, you're great. I was on your show, and the more I'm around you, the more I like you. So keep it up, buddy. And Craig, Ethan can hook us up if we want to. I'd be on your show. Sure, I'm on any show. I don't care. I'm like a podcast YouTube whore. I'll just go on anybody's show. I just want to say that this is real personal for me, as you guys can tell. And I do get a little animated about it. I do believe life is precious. You guys who know me, if you can find my stuff on daveoutloud.com, and my thing is called Dying Out Loud. And I talk about this a lot because it's a subject. I believe that we need to be talking about death more, that death is just simply the natural result of living. It's nothing to be afraid of or to be avoided or to be in denial of. It's just what happens because we're alive. And how we die and when we die is something that people like me should have something to say about. But more importantly, my view and the thing I talk more about is how we're living. Because we know death is coming. And in my view, this is the one life we have. Sorry, Catalina. But in my view, this is the one life we have. And it's very important that we make the most of it and that we maximize our moments. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm not in a hurry to die. I'm not all about, let's give me death. I just want control, and I want choices when that time comes for someone in my situation so that I don't have to suffer needlessly longer than I want to. And I want to say hey again to Bevan, and I see you on here. She was, what is her email? I can't remember now. Toppling Statues. And then Bestname Ever. Christian, you're awesome, from Stockholm, Sweden. Yes. She's always on the show. She's just the best ever. Yes. And I love all you guys. And this was great, Ethan. Good job. And Mindy, good on you for this idea. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Good work, Ethan.